For more than 2,000 years, this single view of Paris has witnessed one of the most remarkable transformations in human history. In the beginning, there was no city here, no monuments, no grand avenues, and no Eiffel Tower. Only open fields stretched toward the horizon. A few families lived in simple thatched huts. The people living here belonged to the Parisii, a Celtic tribe whose name would eventually become known throughout the world. The village prospered through farming and trade. More livestock grazed in the surrounding countryside. Storage huts, workshops, and larger homes appeared. What had once been a scattered settlement slowly evolved into a thriving community. Traders carried goods between neighboring regions, bringing wealth and opportunity to the Parisii people. But history rarely stands still. In the 1st century before Christ, Roman armies advanced into Gaul. The lands of the Parisii were absorbed into the expanding Roman Empire. The old Celtic settlement began a dramatic transformation. Roman influence introduced new architecture, organized streets, and more advanced construction methods. Wooden huts gradually gave way to sturdier buildings. Trade expanded, and the settlement became increasingly connected to the wider Roman world. As decades passed, the town of Lutetia emerged. Markets became busier. Stone structures appeared alongside timber buildings. Roman merchants, craftsmen, and officials helped shape daily life. What had once been farmland was becoming an organized urban center. The Roman centuries brought prosperity. Streets became more developed, commerce flourished, and the population increased. Workshops filled with artisans producing goods for local markets. Travelers and merchants passed through the growing settlement, connecting it to distant parts of the empire. Yet, even the greatest empires eventually declined. By the 3rd and 4th centuries, Rome's power began to weaken. Economic difficulties spread throughout the empire. Political instability affected daily life, and growth slowed. The once confident Roman world entered a period of uncertainty. As Roman authority faded, new beliefs began reshaping society. Christianity spread across the region. Small places of worship appeared, and religious communities emerged. The old Roman order slowly gave way to a different world. By the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire had collapsed. Many of the structures and institutions that had defined Roman life disappeared. Some buildings fell into disrepair. Trade declined. The population adjusted to a more local and uncertain existence. But the settlement survived. During the early medieval centuries, Paris grew in importance. Churches became larger. Religious influence expanded. Local rulers strengthened their authority. Merchants returned to the streets, bringing renewed prosperity to the settlement. New generations rebuilt and adapted. Wooden homes multiplied once again. Markets returned. Life continued despite political change. The community that had endured the fall of Rome slowly began to recover. By the High Middle Ages, Paris had become a thriving center of commerce, learning, and religion. Markets overflowed with activity. Trade routes connected the city to distant regions. Wealth brought larger buildings, better infrastructure, and a steadily growing population. Then, from the north, came a new threat. The Viking Age arrived. Raiders traveled along Europe's rivers, attacking settlements and trading centers. Paris became a target. Defensive preparations increased. Fortifications were strengthened. Tension spread through the growing town. In the late 9th century, Viking forces launched a famous assault against Paris. Streets that had once been filled with merchants and craftsmen suddenly witnessed conflict. Defenders fought to protect their homes. Barricades appeared. Smoke rose above the city. For months, the struggle continued. Despite the destruction, Paris survived. The Viking threat eventually faded, and rebuilding began. Damaged structures were repaired. Commerce returned. The population grew. Stronger defenses and renewed confidence encouraged expansion. The city entered a new period of prosperity. As the Middle Ages progressed, Paris transformed rapidly. More stone buildings appeared. Streets became busier. Skilled craftsmen established workshops. Merchants sold goods from across Europe. The city became one of the continent's most important urban centers. Construction projects reshaped the skyline. Religious architecture grew increasingly ambitious. Churches expanded. Towers rose higher, and new landmarks began defining the city's identity. Yet prosperity was interrupted by tragedy. In the 14th century, the Black Death swept across Europe. Paris suffered alongside countless other cities. Another challenge emerged: The Hundred Years' War brought instability, military activity, and uncertainty. Defensive measures appeared throughout the city. Armed men patrolled the streets. Economic growth slowed as conflict shaped everyday life. Eventually, the war ended. Recovery followed. Buildings were repaired. Markets reopened. Population returned. Paris gradually regained its position as one of Europe's leading cities. The Renaissance introduced a new era of creativity and intellectual growth. Architecture became more sophisticated. Wealthy merchants invested in better homes and businesses. New ideas spread through society. Paris evolved into a center of culture and learning. As centuries passed, the city became increasingly elegant. Noble families traveled through its streets in horse-drawn carriages. Bookshops, markets, and workshops flourished. The influence of the French monarchy expanded. Paris grew into the heart of a powerful kingdom. By the 17th and 18th centuries, the city was thriving. Fashion, literature, philosophy, and commerce all contributed to its reputation. Cafes and public gathering places became centers of discussion and debate. In 1789, the French Revolution erupted. The old order was challenged. Citizens filled the streets. Political upheaval transformed every aspect of French society. Paris became the center of one of history's most influential revolutions. The Revolutionary Years brought uncertainty, conflict, and dramatic change. Yet from this turmoil emerged a new France. Soon, Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power, carrying the nation into a new era. During the 19th century, Paris continued to expand. Industry, commerce, and population growth transformed the city. But many medieval neighborhoods remained crowded and difficult to navigate. Then came one of the greatest urban redevelopment projects ever undertaken. Under Baron Haussmann, vast sections of old Paris were demolished and rebuilt. Narrow medieval streets disappeared. Wide boulevards replaced them. Uniform stone buildings lined the new avenues. The foundations of modern Paris were created. Toward the end of the century, a new structure began rising above the skyline. Built for the 1889 World's Fair, the Eiffel Tower quickly became the city's defining landmark. Towering above Paris, it symbolized innovation, engineering, and modern ambition. The Belle Époque followed. Electric lights illuminated the streets. Paris entered one of its most celebrated eras. Then the First World War began. Soldiers marched through the city. The Roaring Twenties brought music, creativity, and cultural innovation. Artists, writers, and intellectuals gathered in Paris, helping shape modern culture. But peace would not last forever. In 1940, German forces occupied Paris during the Second World War. Military presence replaced normal life. The city endured years of hardship and uncertainty. Then came liberation. In 1944, crowds filled the streets in celebration. French flags waved proudly. Paris emerged from occupation and looked toward the future once more. The post-war decades brought modernization. Automobiles became common. Public transportation expanded. Economic growth reshaped daily life. The famous boulevards filled with traffic, businesses, and increasing numbers of visitors. In 1968, student-led protests erupted across Paris, demanding social and political reforms. The movement challenged traditional authority and helped shape a more open and modern French society. By the end of the 20th century, Paris had become a truly global city. Tourists arrived from every continent. Historic landmarks stood alongside modern infrastructure. The metro carried millions of passengers beneath the streets above. Today, Paris is one of the most visited and admired cities on Earth. Crowded sidewalks, busy cafes, elegant architecture, and the Eiffel Tower define a skyline recognized across the globe. Yet beneath the modern city lies the memory of every generation that came before.